This video is brought to you by GameMaker. And if you've ever wanted to get into game development, GameMaker does this really crazy thing where it's free. Just start making and only pay when you want to release your game to the world commercially.
It's fast, it's user-friendly, and there's easy-to-follow tutorials, plus a dedicated community to help answer even my questions. How make man jump? GameMaker is a 2D game engine that's helped bring some of yours and my favorite recent experiences to life, like UFO 50, Chicory, Anton Blast, and of course, Yahtzee's own Starstruck Vagabond.
Ooh, we talking about GameMaker? I love that program, it's so easy to use. As well as Starstruck Vagabond, I also used it to make all 12 projects in my 12 games in 12 months Dev Diary challenge. And I couldn't believe how much sex I got out of that. None. I got none at all. Which I couldn't believe.
So what are you waiting for? Head on over to the GameMaker link in the description and start cracking away today, because we want to play your game.
Yeah, looking through this list, I'm seeing one of you made Armpit Fart Tycoon, and I've got several questions for you. Hello, and welcome to DevHeads, the podcast focused on the ins, outs, and goings on of game development with host experience ranging from indie, double to AAA. I'm Jay. As always, I'm joined by my wonderful co-hosts Tina.
Hello, how's it going?
And Mikey.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us.
And today we have a special guest, which is Ondřej Bittner. Ondřej, can you introduce yourself for our audience?
Hello. Hi. Thank you for having me. I'm Ondřej Bittner. I am a senior game designer at Warhorse. I worked on Kingdom Come Deliverance 1 and 2.
Hell yeah, dude.
And where are you right now, Ondřej?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I'm in my car. I mean, despite the financial success, I struck. No, it's.
Don't say that. Oh my god.
We need funding for Kingdom Come Deliverance 3.
Yeah. I'm like designers living in their cars. Basically, I'm sick. I didn't want to infect people in the office, but I also have 2 little hobgoblins at home. So I set up shop in my car so I can do this podcast. So I hope you don't mind.
How dedicated. Dude. We massively appreciate it.
We appreciate you.
100%.
I also will cough a lot and stuff like that, so I'm sorry about that.
Oh, good.
That's fine. We'll get digitally infected.
Thank you
It'll be
for being
absolutely
here.
fine.
And you are in the Czech Republic, just so our listeners know.
I'm in Prague, Czech Republic, which is freezing right now.
Well,
as we established.
That for me is a perfect jumping off point, because we met in Prague when I came to an event for Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. And one of the things that I remember so fondly was that you and the dev team and the PR took us around Kutenberg. I believe that's the correct name of the city, and showed us how meticulous you guys were at recreating the sights, the sounds, and like the dynamics of the city to that time period. And it was so important to like the Czech Republic that it was the mayor came to like basically shout you guys out and say how much your authenticity was so important to the culture of the Czech Republic, which is just crazy. Was it like, how did you guys tackle getting that form of realism like into a game on such a big scale?
I mean, it's hard for me to answer this properly because I think we're just used to it at this point. Like, we're used to having real life layouts of buildings and real landscapes and models of weapons. So in the beginning, we said to ourselves, we want to do this very realistic. We have I would say, quite privilege in Czech Republic. There's a lot of museums, archaeologists. There's the culture, the heritage culture is sort of huge here. There are loads of castles and other, monuments being taken care of by some very dedicated people. So you have resources because you can't do this on your own.
Mhm.
There's
Yeah.
also like universities obviously connected to this. So we had really good backbone in this sort of heritage protection movement, or yeah, I guess I can call it that.
Yeah.
And yeah, and so it was kind of, I don't think it was very hard actually to do this if you have this sort of backbone and you can find correct people to your team who are willing to do endless research on any topic.
Did you
And yeah,
did you get like special access to, because after the success of Kingdom Come Deliverance 1, and like how faithful you guys made it there, when you ventured into doing a sequel, did you get any new access to information that you didn't prior because of the success of the first one?
no, I wouldn't say it's because of the success. I think I mean there was a difference in the sort of acceptance of our presence somewhere. Like for example, as you mentioned, the mayor and Gutenberg, everyone in Gutenberg was head over heels.
Yes.
Obviously it means tourism, right? So that's great.
And pride, right? And representation. It's exciting, right? We don't get a lot of games or media, at least in the West, like in North America, it seems. We don't get a lot of media about the Czech Republic or Czechia.
I mean, that sort of in general is a vibe here, but specifically in the town, they were like, oh yeah, we have to prepare for influx of tourists and stuff like that. But on the other hand, when we were doing the first one and we went to Bergstein Castle in Ratai, it was closed, and we asked whether we can take pictures inside, and people are like, no, for a video game? Are you kidding me? So there was a slight,
What a bunch of nerds.
there's a slight shift in sort of like, oh yeah, maybe I should let these people into my basement to take pictures, because that's what we did in Gutenberg. Invaded people's privacy and took pictures of their houses. So maybe it's for something that matters. So that was great this time around.
That's nice to see.
Nice.
So,
yeah, I was
one of the
curious
things-
about that.
sorry, Tina.
You took photos for reference for the artists. They didn't do any photo scanning or anything like that.
No. Everything is handcrafted, basically, based on concept art,
Nice.
which is based on research.
Yeah.
Because obviously sometimes the building is still standing, but most of the time it looks different. Or it's not standing at all, and you sort of like do reconstruction of how this building would look in 1403.
Yeah, that's cool.
You had the
We got a,
resources to go back and look at all that stuff. Oh, a question.
We just had a donation, yes, come in through the chat. Onyxia donated $10 and says, I just want to thank Ondřej and the entire Warhorse team for making phenomenal games and opening the entire world up to the Czech Republic and its history. Phenomenal game. I'm playing Kingdom Come Delivery 2 right now. Deliverance.
Hell
sorry.
yeah.
Thank you. That's great to hear.
Beautiful. Like that's something that always gets me about games like this, because I feel like you're one of the first game series that I've seen that is truly trying to tackle taking the RPG formula and then making it accurate to the time period, and that includes restricting certain things that are included in a lot of RPGs because they don't really work within the formula. Like, was that difficult from a designer's perspective to effectively make a historical game fun to a mass audience?
Well, this was KCD1 was my first game on like this level of I mean, like, I haven't made video game before that, so for me it wasn't that much of a difference because I didn't know anything, basically.
That's all you know. Yeah.
So this was my first game, and it has to be realistic. So yeah, okay, let's do it. I mean, with the RPG, it sort of still is largely a fantasy in a lot of things, right? Like, you meet so many bandits, and you do so many great deeds, and you steal so many chickens that it's virtually impossible for anyone to do this.
That's
So
true.
it's
Henry's
still-
incredibly lucky, isn't he? Consistently
Yeah, he is.
throughout his story.
So so basically, it's still a fantasy. It's still like the element of RPG is not gone because you're still enacting your fantasy. That's like a very important part of RPGs, right? You're role playing as someone. You're enacting your own fantasy. But it's just set in a much more grounded setting. But I guess that on the inside, it doesn't change much, you know. But instead of goblins and orcs, you have bandits, and instead of magical swords, you have just better swords. So
yeah, it's interesting, right? Because for me, it's all about framing, how you frame those specific rewards and encounters. Because at the end of the day, like you said, instead of a magical sword, it's a better, like, well-crafted sword. They're effectively, design-wise, serving the same purpose as a reward structure. But it's then how you frame them within the context of the rest of the game. Because, you know, if you start with weaker weapons that haven't been made very well, and that's all you have access to, when you eventually do find a well-crafted steel sword, that juxtaposition makes it incredibly satisfying and feels like a big reward, right? It doesn't really matter what it is, it's how you frame it.
I also feel like through those limitations of saying, like, well, okay, we're going to make a game that is, as you're saying, Ondřej, like structurally a fantasy game, design-wise even, largely a fantasy game, or an RPG at least. You have to be innovative. You kind of like force some innovations of like, well, if we're going to talk about making combat fun, and we can't enjoy the privilege of the magic systems, right, and the magic mechanics, and then the all the other like more supernatural enemies that you would fight, and all the creative ways that you can make them fun to fight, you kind of have to like innovate. You kind of have to be creative. The example for me that I feel like I noticed immediately was the way that sword combat, or just melee combat in general, works. You had the limitation of only having realistic, grounded ways of killing enemies. You had the limitation of, as you said, like having a lot of bandits, like one broader archetype of enemies you're going to fight most of the time. That's one of the things I think is so cool, and I think people appreciate it, is like the core loop of combat feels different from other fantasy games because it had to be different. At least that's my interpretation of it. I'm curious if that was kind of a part of the process when you were designing combat.
In combat specifically, I think this thinking wasn't really there. It was more like Victor Botsan, who did the combat for KCD1 and KCD2. I think he always knew that making a fencing simulator, basically, is going to be fun, regardless of what you are losing towards. I can't fling fireballs and I can't do buffs and debuffs and stuff. So I think in a lot of ways, what you're saying is true about, I think, a lot of other mechanics. But I think specifically in combat, because combat is such a vital part of the game and it's so important to nail it, right. Even though you're in an RPG where you can go without combat, it still is very important. So I think in that specific regard, it was very much, we think that historical fighting, fencing, the techniques, it will look cool, it will feel good, it will be challenging, there will be enough to progress and level up not only your numbers but also your player skill.
Yeah.
So we think that so in this regard, I think combat was always like very much grounded just about the idea, let's do a fencing simulator, period.
Yeah. You're saying the realism of it was an excellent foundation already, and you had no concerns about feeling limited, basically. That makes sense.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Can we give our listeners an understanding of the studio size, the team, and how many people it took to actually pull off your sequel?
So right now there's 250 people in the studio. It's, we have all the usual departments, all the usual suspects. We have programmers and scripters, QA, design department, animators. We have our own motion capture studios up on a floor above us, which is
that's
very
good.
That's very, very useful.
Yeah.
to have. Also, we have like our own like voice recording studio there because the amount of voiceover was so intense. We had to build it basically.
I saw you make a post, Ondřej, on Twitter, which was basically like, oh, there's been this picture circulating of one of your dev team sat next to the script of Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, but it actually wasn't Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, was it?
Yeah. It's a picture of Iso. Iso is a YouTuber from Germany, and it's him standing next to a script of KCD1, and media kind of took it like, oh, it's script for KCD2, and if it was the case, the tower would be twice the size.
Oh.
And so this time we didn't print out the script. We had far better system in place, so we don't, just damage the planet too much with our
estimated rainforest.
Wow.
That's
nuts, man.
So you're saying it was most likely double the dialogue as the previous game?
I think now it's like, I think the first one was over a million words. This time it was like 2 point something.
Oh,
so, but it definitely from the inside, it feels quite a lot because you spend and the worst part is, or the worst part. I mean, it's still game dev, so it's cool, but in order to make all the game mechanic works, every actor is sort of like doing his dialogue for like quests and the actual dialogues, and they do like I think it was 3 sessions, voiceover sessions, so that's 12 hours of just the open world. Hey, I see you, thief, and hey, come help me in combat, and oh, these must be the wind kind of stuff.
Yeah, like bops and stuff.
Like voiceover directing that is really takes a lot of. You can say that.
Yeah.
So many variations. That's wild, man. Like,
yeah.
The depth you guys have gone to like designing a story and like a consistent narrative throughout that is just unbelievable. Like the scale of it just blows me away.
I mean, we broke the Guinness World Record, and I said, or we all agreed that we don't want to break it again ever.
Wait, really?
Which record? Wait.
Yeah, I didn't know this.
Dialogue in a
I'm
game.
Googling it now.
Yeah, it's. I mean, now it's contested by Baldur's Gate 3. We have this like beef with friendly, friendly beef with Larian, and I think we should have it because this like with a script this size, it's sort of like hard to discern what exactly is like number of original lines for a lot of technical purposes that go in the background, but. We should have the Guinness World Record, and I don't ever want to break that record ever again because it's just. I think in the end, it's too much. You also get a lot of. I mean, it's great, but you get a lot of blind spaces in that. Like, so much dialogue actually goes unused because the situation don't come up, or they are. The conditions are not right. Like in the first game, there was a dialogue about what was happening in the game between villagers, but someone set it up so that people have to be at least 2 kilometers from the place that event happened, which in a lot of cases wasn't on the map. So people never, ever actually talked about it. And it was hours of dialogue.
Oh, no.
And that's a bummer.
Yeah.
That's a huge bummer.
So,
can't you patch that and just kind of reduce, or would it not make sense if
we patched this one? We patched, but the point is that we actually don't know how much of the dialogue is like somewhere hidden in the corner and not being used.
Is that requires so much testing, right? Yeah.
It's
crazy.
As you're saying, it's hard to test the things that are not there. Basically,
yeah, you'd never know unless you were specifically looking for that one thing.
I'll let my buddy Larian know that you were talking shit, and we'll see if we can escalate this beef into something more hostile.
It's okay.
Oh,
It's okay.
But we need to know the answer.
I mean, one of our designers left for Larian, so I think they're the person who should like judge this.
Maybe mediate too.
Mediate between us.
They've got a foot in each.
It's crazy that you guys did that. The moment that I had the thought, holy shit, they did so much, was going through Kingdom Come Deliverance 2's Alchemy tutorial in the beginning and fucking up the chamomile. And Henry says something like, "Oh, I should have boiled the chamomile a little longer." And I went, holy shit, that means they have dialogue for all the herbs.
Yeah.
That's nuts. Yeah. So it already shows in the tutorial.
Yeah.
For all the steps you can mess up, there's like variations.
That's wild.
Of dialogue, and because
I've done.
Needed...
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
No, but I mean that's the tax for the realism, because giving feedback in this very much haptic game, mini game, is sort of hard. You don't want to like pop up a window saying you messed up this. You want Henry to say something, and so you have to do this.
I have a lot of
more
experience
challenging
doing
route to handle that, and I appreciate that. That's incredible.
I've done a lot of like bark writing, and I thought I was going crazy when I wrote 60 different ways to say I'm reloading. But when you look at games like like Grand Theft Auto and Kingdom Come and Baldur's Gate, it's really on just a whole other level. Obviously, because you have like narrative and stuff, but even just with barks, you can go very far, and it's nutty. So props to you guys for that.
So you call them barks? On Apex, we call it battle chatter.
Okay, yeah. Everybody uses their own thing.
Yeah. Just for listeners, I want them to understand what we're talking about.
You're right. Sorry, that was a little inside baseball.
Oh, I think they love that. That's why they listen.
Oh yeah.
We have another donation from Bookworm776 for $10. They said, "I'm a history and architecture nerd, and the level of detail and care is incredible. It makes me happy to know there's an audience for something niche but well crafted with a passion and clear identity." Damn.
Thank you.
Amen. A lot of praise, Ondřej. A lot of praise in the chat.
Yeah. We have another one.
Catching up.
For $4.99, Mendoza92 says, thank you for the donation, by the way. Loving the game so far. Is there anything you guys want to implement that didn't make the cut?
Ooh.
Features that you have to cut. I'm sure there is. I don't know if you can
for an
share
hour
any.
about that, I bet. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's so many.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, personally, I think I really miss, and I think every great game should have, is a fishing minigame.
I knew you were going to say fishing. As soon as you said every great game, continue.
every great game has a fishing minigame. And I mean, obviously it was on the table. And I think also the horse combat is, in KCD1, it was sort of like, let's put it there and see. And then in the next one, we were like, okay, it was really bad in the first one. We have to do something about it. But it was sort of like so much. The line was so long that it kind of was left outside in the cold. So I guess revamping the horse combat and make content around it, because right now there's no like people fighting on horses. There's no jousting because people always obviously wanted jousting. So that's another thing we wanted to do. But, and the list goes on and on and on. But for me, it's more content things that are not in the game. Like the number of quests that have been sort of culled from the production is large.
How do you prioritize that? Like, with a game of this scale, how do you prioritize what features are going to get implemented, what ones are then going to get quests associated with them? Like, is it stuff that the audience from KCD1 like resonated with the most and like got the most kind of like do you have any data on like what players did during the first game?
we kind of, I mean, we didn't have any hard data. We did run some telemetry sessions on but not in game because we couldn't do that at the time. So we had some like number data. But a lot of that was we all just basically started watching streams the first week, taking notes,
cool.
How people play the game. That's a really great thing about streaming for game devs is you can actually really easily watch people play the game and
like
interact with it.
Free focus testing, right?
Yeah, it's free focus testing. I mean, Kingdom Come is it's great for streamers because the game practically humbles you at every corner, which the audience usually loves. So
Yeah.
But so we were watching streams and sort of taking notes. Then we also included things we didn't do for the first one, like blacksmithing or crossbows. And then the priority, I guess, developing for us, Warhorse is very, I would say, fluid and sort of like there's not a lot of like straight lines and hard edges. So what's important kind of flows to the top. Sometimes it's due to our creative director making a very strong, opinionated opinion.
Yep.
About like something. Sometimes it's just people in the studio go like, hey, we can't really, there's sort of this democratic element sometimes pops up, like people get together like, hey, we noticed this, maybe we should really like put this ahead a little bit. Then there are people in the sort of shadows who kind of always know how to implement what they want because they just go around people and rogue, a little bit rogue, but I mean like in a good, in a good spirited rogue, in a good way. Like
when they say, here's this feature I did, and then everyone plays it, they're like, oh, this is amazing. Yeah. I know what you mean.
So it's sort of this amalgam. So I can't really say it's like Warhorse is like a living beast and it kind of moves on its own pace. And it's hard to discern what is actually happening. On the other hand, we don't have a lot of, I would say, the corporate overhang. 44 you mentioned there was 44 producers on Apex.
45 or so. So there was like 45 or some more on God of War Ragnarok, which was crazy.
On God of War.
It's the largest production team I've ever been on.
That sounds like a nightmare to me because I mean, like producers are very important, but as a designer, I have a very peculiar relationship with them.
Go
which
on.
Is like
I think I want listeners to hear this. Yeah.
They always want to kick down my sandcastles, right? They're like, we don't have time for this.
Time for that parapet or whatever.
Yeah.
It's funny because one of my good friends is a game designer. His name is we call him Manderson, and I used to always joke with him that I just like to destroy your dreams, and he just lost it and started freaking out. But it's we don't look as a producer. We don't try to make things worse or bad for you. It's just like gotta protect you from yourself sometimes. You know what I'm saying?
Listen, we very well, we are all aware that we wouldn't ever finish the game.
Yeah. Wait, so how many producers did you have, by the way, on your team?
I guess like 6 or 7.
For 250?
It kind of changes. 250. And in Warhorse, there's a thing called owner, which is like sort of like a function for a person that's responsible for feature or quest or content. And they are not the producer. So they're like and the producer is basically a person who's like to make sure everything runs
smoothly
along the lines, but they don't have the sort of like creative oversight. So like in some other companies, they do have this.
Yeah.
So usually the designer is the owner of a feature or a quest or a chunk of content, and they are responsible for delivering it in some quality, and the producer is there to sort of like speed things along, set up
sounds like
meetings and
It sounds familiar to me.
Right.
That sounds like Apex. So what for the listeners? So you worked on a feature. Can you share any like particular feature that you worked on? Because I want to describe to the listener what you're saying.
I did blacksmithing, for example.
Okay, so blacksmithing. You went directly to the animators, audio, the narrative.
Yeah.
I guess is narrative and audio the same where you are?
We have designers. We have sort of like mixed gameplay and narrative design into
Okay.
one design department, and people
Okay,
just
cool.
get different sort of
Parts of it.
things based on their
Okay.
preference.
Yeah, but you basically
we
make
have-
sure you get everything you need for blacksmithing.
Yeah, we have feature teams, so people gather. There's someone from sound, someone from animation, someone from code,
Oh, okay.
scripters, QA. They all gather around. I explain the feature. We have like weekly check-ins. How it's going? Is it going well? Basically stand-ups.
Mhm.
And then it sort of goes through these like iterative phases of like, we should really have this and this and that ready. Then we show it to some people. Some people share their feedback. And, I would say it's pretty standard. I don't know. It feels very sort of natural. All the people who need to be present are present. So
So the AAA studios I've worked at, having what they call like feature pods or strike teams, kind of varied from each place that I went to. In some cases, like on Call of Duty, I know that they were used in like we're short on time. We got 4 months, but we got to get this done. Let's just create this group that's kind of, just running at full speed without any sort of bureaucracy holding them back. I've been on other teams where there is no feature pods, and then everyone's kind of moving forward slowly, and you struggle to coordinate when handoffs are, and then there's like gaps in the schedule for that said feature because priorities are, different. So I like feature pods. I think they work well. But I guess, it's a studio case by case team size situation. Like you wouldn't want the most junior developers working together on a feature on their own. That's probably a recipe for some not so great things.
I mean, this was sort of like natural evolution from what we did on KCD1, which was total punk. Like on KCD1, there was no feature teams. Yeah. There were some loose idea about departments, but basically I could walk in 3 days before release and say, hey, I want this new quest, tiny little quest put into the game. Can you do it? Please, scripter, can you script it? And they're like, yeah, sure, why not? Sounds like fun. And so now I couldn't do it. And the production was very, very angry about my secret quests in the game.
Of which there are how many, Ondřej?
There's just one. There's just one, and they forced me to put it in the system. In the end, they were like, "You have to have a QA, and you have to have like all the checklists and all that." And so I did that, and it's good they did that because it was broken. Obviously,
there we go.
At least it got in, right? Like you made it, right? So at least there's that.
Yeah. I mean, there was
Sorry, my facial reaction is just like I can't let go of the producer in me. I'm like, what? Look, if it makes the game fun and better, why the hell not? Especially if everyone aware is on board and wants to support you. Like, yeah.
I did say that we have a very peculiar relationship with producers, and now you know why.
Oh, absolutely.
And did you say
I knew what you meant from earlier. Like, I understood. Yeah.
I think it's like 6 or 7. The number changed, quite often.
Mm-hmm.
So
it seems so few to me for such a team of like a few hundred people.
On Apex, there was like 135, including QA, I think, and 76 developers were assigned to me as a producer, which was pretty intense.
Sounds intense.
That's
That was 76. And how many producers were on the team?
3. So there was one producer, me, and then 2 associate producers.
Okay.
And one was assigned to design full time, just taking care of their day to day. And then another was assigned to all of art, so everything from concept to.
Do you think that's a good structure in your opinion, as a producer, to have a producer for each kind of like department in a way?
It depends on the scale of the team. Like I could see 6 or 7 like lean and producers that are very well versed in game development and what it takes on a technical level to get something done. Like what tool does my dev use? How long does that take? Who's the next person that needs to deal with this?
Okay.
If they're all well informed, I could see 6 or 7 working on a team of that scale of 250. But again, I don't know this team intimately. I'm not trying to like that.
I'm just trying to ask from your perspective as a producer. I love
don't
learning
feel like
about
that's
that role.
unreasonable. Like I think it depends on the personalities too, right? Like I've been in a situation with God. So I went to one studio. I won't say who they are. But when I joined, they were extremely antagonistic towards production. They're like, we don't need you. I don't even know what you do. You just sit here and tell me I can't do something. I'm like, cool. Here's your Jira. Like, please.
Was a party? Did a party want to say like, that's correct? I'm supposed to tell you when you can't do certain things.
Well,
that's my job.
But there's a nuance to saying that, right? Because a lot of designers, rightly so, own a feature and the quality of it and what it is and it's better for the gamer. Like, who is a producer to say what can and can't be? It's almost like you're giving some stranger the right to say what's good or not in a game sometimes. Like, that can be blurred if there's a gray area sometimes.
Or what like takes priority and like
yeah,
we need
basically
to focus on
if
this.
a producer gives priority to something, it's almost like devs might misinterpret that as, hey, you're leaving this feature out here to die because you didn't prioritize it. You are deciding what goes in the game, and that's not your role. So there.
Yeah. So we don't. We always set up the priority on like planning meetings where like the department leads and people who had the vision for the game were. Oh, obviously producers were there, but they were like working with people. Yeah. Basically, we told them we want this, and then they were trying to kind of like cram it into the timetable.
They were playing Tetris with the schedule. That's
because what you're saying is very true. Like on a game, especially on an open world game with a large scale, every thing is like a little bit piece of a mosaic. And you can take 1 out and nothing will happen. And you can take 10 out and nothing will happen. But if they're like clustered together, now there's a hole in the picture, right? And it's incredibly complicated to see this. Or I mean, like it's almost like there's sort of like a knack for it to have a feeling or instinct to see what should be there and what shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
Because this is really hard. This is the same as if people in like the higher ups ask you like, how much will this feature bring? How much money will this bring in revenues? Like, I don't know
that question.
Like how could I possibly know that? It's like, but I know it's supposed to be there because it's the part of the mosaic.
Yeah.
If it's missing, and some of the stones are smaller and some of them are obviously bigger, right? So this is really very hard, and I think that because a lot of people in gaming industry started to be very, I think that this power has been sort of like taken by the people who crunch either money or numbers. It starts to show on the games that they lack the quirky, weird, funny things because they're extra, right? You need to have the basics ironed out. But the basics are basics.
Yeah. It takes a special kind of person to take that kind of producer role to see that mosaic in their head as a whole. Because I feel like as a designer myself as well, I'm guilty of this, of when I'm thinking of a feature that I want to implement or a quest or a specific thing, I get very focused on that one thing and like making that the best it can be and thinking how it can fit in that mosaic. And the entire mosaic itself kind of, as you were saying, Ondřej, kind of like blurs because I'm focused on that one thing.
You're honed in on that one thing.
Yeah, I'm like, I want to make this thing the best it can be and like make sure that this fits within the context. And it takes a very special type of person with a special brain in the producer role to look at the whole thing and be like, okay, is this gonna fit, and is it worth like honing in on this and allowing the designer to hone in on this, rather than, I imagine like designers like rabid dogs that you like set off into the wild and be like, go hunt this thing, right? And producers have to choose where to point them and be like, you're super talented, where do we put you? Like, where do we set you off to go make the thing the best it can? And that's difficult, man. It's super difficult. Like, making that cool, I couldn't do it.
In my experience, it's a little more. It's a little more designer directed in that metaphor, because the designer's like, hey, here's all this cool stuff I want to do, and the producer goes, all right, well, let's try to find the time for it, and we'll do our best to find the time for it. But also, you're gonna have to prioritize a little bit for me, and then it's on the designer to be like, okay, I get it. Here, this, and this, and here's how long I think this will take. And then, kind of as we're discussing, I think depending on the team, it depends on like how much is the designer the owner. You know, as Ondřej's saying, who just goes to the artist to say, hey, this feature, how long will that take? Or at least just, hey, what do you think about this? Would you do it differently? Because I need to know, because that's going to affect the scope. And as the owner, I need to like talk to the producer, or I just need to know for my own ownership. Is kind of how I see it, and I've experienced it at least.
Yeah.
And I think it's also very important to be the cheerleader for your own team.
Yeah.
Because people, I mean, we all know that if the people buy into the idea, it's 10 times better, and they always find time.
Too.
Like,
yeah, it's true. It's true.
There are cats in KCD2. Like, you can spot cats, and that's like totally rogue thing that people who like cats in our company just decided to do.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Right
And
on.
it happened unnaturally fast, you're saying? Like the cat feature got in real quick, basically.
And they need a special, because they didn't want to do all the like you can kill cats and animation and looting them and stuff. So they did a special. They find a programmer who likes cats and said, "Hey, we need you to code like a new type of entity that would just like disappear from the player very quickly, so they can't really catch it." And he was like, "Yeah, I like cats. I'll do this."
Passion, man.
You don't have to make animations for cat death or create complex cat behaviors if all they do is run away and
Run away.
Yeah, I mean,
which makes sense within
smart.
the context of a cat,
very
right?
smart.
Like,
yeah, it also
makes sense for cats.
Yeah,
That's okay.
You nailed it there for me, because like when you're talking about the punk nature of Kingdom Come 1, like I think passion is infectious, and like if you care about a thing and you're like, do you know what, I'm just gonna effectively ask for forgiveness instead of permission, and I'm just gonna try and implement this thing and be like, look how cool this thing is. That passion for it and like is infectious, like you were saying. Find a programmer that likes cats, and they're going to do a stellar job because they care, right? They like cats and they want to make that the best it can be. And it's infectious, and it just that permeates through the company of just been like everyone working on cool things that they're passionate about. It's not like, oh, I'm like trudging through and just like trying to implement things that I've been told to implement. It's things like you're excited to do this and you're excited to get this in, and then you just do that hundreds and hundreds of times, like across the company, and you make clearly a very entertaining space for players to explore. Super cool. Super cool. All right. We actually have another dono. Well, I'm pretty sure we didn't read this one out, from Dark Jackal, $10. Thank you so much. It says, can't stay for the whole conversation today, but it's been great. Here's an odd question for Ondřej. If you were inclined to set a sci-fi game in the Czech Republic, how far in the future would you set it?
Oh shit, cool.
Interesting.
Well, I actually wanted to. Great question, by the way, because hard sci-fi is criminally underrepresented in gaming right now. I think hard sci-fi things like Expanse and stuff. Like
Yep.
Hell yeah.
that's
Good
missing.
reference
That's
to
missing.
Sci-Fi.
Yep.
And so I wouldn't go much. I think like we kind of do live in a sci-fi a little bit with all the AI stuff.
Mm.
So there's a brilliant book by forget the name. He was a co-worker of Stephen Hawking. It's called Life 3.0 or 2.0, 3.0 probably 2.0. I'm sure. And he has
Max
like
Tegmark?
this. It's Max Tegmark. Yeah, sure.
Okay. Yep.
And he has like the book is about like 6 years old, about AI. It's hauntingly precise about its predictions, and he has like list of predictions for 1 year from now, 10 years from now, 100 years from now. And there's a brilliant, because all the predictions for like 10 years from now read like a little short story beginning. Like imagine if AI decides to like exterminate people, but as we kept tigers and elephants, they keep us in like a zoo type of thing, or other ones. And there was one brilliant, and that one was, imagine if AGI is already here, but it's not powerful enough yet. So it's hiding in the shadows of the internet. It's manipulating the world to some end. It's called like a hidden god theory, and I would really, really want to do some type of media based around this idea because it sounded like cool. It would also explain all the weird shit we're like witnessing.
Yeah, right. That's really cool.
That's a fun premise. And what I'm imagining is it's something AGI focused specifically. That could be a good antagonist or player. And I wonder, what's he doing in the Czech Republic? What's the interest there?
That's the part I haven't been in, because previously I didn't form this question around Czech Republic. But I mean, we do have server farms, so can be hiding anywhere. It can be also starting a cult here or something.
Oh, okay. So like
cool.
we've taken a small break from it, but we usually do a like improv game pitch. And I think this is just kind of rolling into that, because I like my questions are, if we keep going with this train and your idea of this game, how are you going to frame it with gameplay? What is the game, right? Like what does that look like?
The core loop.
Yeah, what's the core loop? Like, is this a first-person game? Is it third-person? Like, what are the mechanics? Like, on a very surface level, we don't need to get deep. Like, how would you envision this? Just off the cuff.
I mean, I really do like detective noir type of games.
I was thinking the same thing. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I was actually kind of bummed from Cyberpunk, because when I saw the first trailer, I was like, yeah, Blade Runner aesthetics, all that. And then it kind of turned into, like, it's a great game. But thematically, it turned into this, like, colorful mohawks and 80s
like
cyberpunk thing.
Gang stuff rather than like
leather jackets. And yeah. And so I was like, I would really like to do, you're just someone who has either you're a private detective, corporate detective, even, it's a job there.
Corporate detective, cool.
And you go around and you sort of like start. I really do like when the story is sort of like everything seems normal, but you can feel something is not all right, type of thing.
I imagine so I've been playing Control recently, and I really like the beauty of going into Control and reading all of these documents and just being like, something is wrong. And I like the idea of a corporate detective who effectively has a flash the badge. I have access to everything in this building. Let me in. So you feel unwelcome because people don't want you there, but you have access to everything, and you can read through stuff and investigate and feel this looks like a normal environment, a normal corporate environment, but something is wrong. And it's your job to figure out across these companies what the connecting threads are. That's really cool.
Control is a great example. Although when I like read the, a little bit about the game, I was like, this is it. but then the amount of time you spend in this, like, something is not right, is like 2 minutes or something. I
it's
guess,
like the first couple hours, and then it devolves into a shooter.
I mean, like, it wasn't a couple hours for me. It was like Really, it was like,
Yeah.
Oh, like the opening.
You walk
yeah.
in front and you're like, "Hey, the building's empty. What's this gun?" Oh, everything's weird now. Like, it's,
yeah.
that's
So
true.
it's super.
That is true. More of that
Just walk
opening.
in,
For
you're
sure.
like, let's go.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's
Yeah,
basically it.
You ever played it,
find
Tina?
the gun and
It's-
everything goes crazy.
It's a pretty wild. Game. Like it's got this awesome. I love this new trend that I think we have, which is like modern combined with supernatural, or like paramilitary, military combined with supernatural. I really like that about Control and otherwise.
Yeah, more SCP stuff. Like I love that kind of vibe, and I want more of that. So like what you were saying about ostensibly the brief opening of Control, Ondřej, like that on a bigger scale, and your job is to figure out what's going on and and what you need to do. Effectively like a puzzle game in the sense of like by gathering information, you can figure out what you need to do and where you need to go. That could be really, really cool, and we could touch on some really weird stuff, because if everything's being controlled by this hidden AI kind of hidden god kind of thing, you could do some weird stuff.
Hidden God is great for the fucking marketing.
It's the name of the hypothesis is Hidden God. Yeah,
the Hidden God hypothesis. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like I'm starting to think about it now, but I shouldn't, because I have other jobs to do. Sounds cool. The only thing which is detective games are such a hard thing to do, right?
Well, what was
it's like Shadows of Doubt?
Shadows of Doubt is the one that I'm coming back to, because if you haven't played that yet, it's really good.
Okay, I should play that then, because I felt like a lot of the detective games are more like adventure games.
Yeah.
Like I played some Sherlock Holmes games, and they were like, "Oh, you chose wrong option in dialogue. Go back." And like, that doesn't. I don't feel like
you
a
out
detective.
Of it, right? Yeah.
Never
I feel like an idiot. That doesn't feel good, But doing that is very hard. Do you know Her Story?
Heard of it? Yeah, haven't played it.
I've heard of it.
That was for me the best detective game, which is the premise is sort of weird, and the gameplay is absolutely unique and also very niche. Like you watch video clips basically, and then you search for new ones. But you're trying. What it does good is it makes you put together a story in your head.
Yeah.
So what you would do as a detective is in the game, very much so.
Yes.
So that was very cool.
Very similar to the openings of like Return of the Obra Dinn and stuff like that, where it kind of allows you to form a story, even though that game does say towards the end, hey, you got things wrong and you got some things right. It allows you to form this narrative in your head of what's happening and what's happened. And I think, in a way, taking the shackles off the player and allowing them to deduce their own conclusions to the information you're giving, I think gives more intrigue and more drive to look for more information than, say, giving confirmation that you're right or wrong. Right? I think
you're stumbling into the same production problem of so much dialogue opportunities.
Oh no,
right?
It's okay.
That's your thing. That's your studio's thing.
It's okay because we can AI generate the AGI's dialogue.
Oh my god, justifications.
So it's fine. Yeah. We'll work it out. We'll save a bunch of money there. Yeah.
By the way, when you were talking about not revealing the answer, have you played Pentiment?
I haven't. Yeah, it's on my wish list though. Does it do a similar thing?
Basically that's a medieval detective sort of like Name of the Rose.
Yeah.
Vibe.
From
it's
Obsidian.
extremely. Josh is like a massive scholar of Middle Ages. It's way more precise game than ours in so many things, And
Wow,
it nails it with you basically have to point at a person that will be sort of like accused of the crime. And the game never tells you. I don't even know if Josh knows it. Like,
there's no check that gets triggered in the background.
The feeling of you just basically, and I guess that has to be sort of the feeling of many people. Like, well, we have to send someone. Someone has to take a fall for this, but we are not. I never can be sure. There's always this like little window. So you really think about who you gonna basically accuse, because so you started not take it lightly as a player, which is great because the emotion sort of translates into you like, oh, I have to do this, and I really. So that's a really
interesting.
They do it in a really cool way. This one, absolutely fantastic game. I have to recommend it to. If the listeners like history, Pentiment is the thing.
That's the one. I mean, I think it's a beautiful example. Also, it raises the question of like niches. Would a wider audience like to not be told that they're right or wrong? Right? Because I'd love it. Right, Ondřej, it seems like you also love that. But would Johnny who plays Call of Duty not being told?
FIFA and Call of Duty.
I was trying to think of like the Johnny who the common gamer as we're
the Fortnite Minecraft
plays Fortnite.
Yeah, right.
Minecraft and COD. Yeah.
Roblox.
Can he? You're saying, Jake, can he bear being told that he's wrong, or what was?
Well, the shooters are a great example. I didn't even think about this. You get into extreme niches by removing specific conditions, kill confirmed, like hit markers. The moment you remove those, which feel like tiny things, completely changes the entire niche of the game. You get into like hardcore mil sims, and then Call of Duty running and gunning, just by removing specific conditions on kill. So like or complicated.
No,
go for it.
Right, like Receiver is my favorite example of this. Receiver is an FPS game made by the people who did Lugaru. Wolfire Games, who went on to do Overgrowth, I think it was called, which is like a rabbit fighting game. Receiver was a 7-day game jam FPS where they took shooting and they just complicated it, where there's a button to remove your magazine. There's a button to put a round into the magazine. There's a button to engage the safety, which you better do, because if you draw your weapon too quickly, you'll shoot yourself in the leg. And there's buttons for drawing the magazine over here in your vest versus over here in your vest. They're all number keys, I think, and it's really cool. So wow. I love it. Because I like shooters.
You like
and I
sim
like when
stuff.
And I like sim stuff too. And I like when core loops are innovated on. Lately, I feel like I've been appreciating that a little more because there's a lot of FPS innovation that's happened in the, I guess, meta progression sense, like Escape from Tarkov, for example. Obviously, like the raid shooter formula is really compelling and dramatic and fun and exciting and great to watch, great to play, good for multiplayer. But, it's cool. I'm impressed when shooters actually go to the low level and go, what if we actually made the literal shooting different? And anyway, that's what came to mind when you were talking about like ways that you can also just complicate it. And will Johnny like that? Will Johnny like if he has to have
will Johnny like that? Well, that's
remove
the question,
mag,
right?
as opposed to the other button to press a button to put the mag back in, or is it too much for Johnny? We don't know.
It's like it's a delivery device.
Sure that you need like Johnny to answer this, because I think that it's very hard to please like certain gamers, and I think it's better to make games that is great for few people.
Agreed.
And totally like people tell me KCD is not for me. I'm like totally okay. I'm totally okay with it. It's great. It's not for everyone, but having more games on the market that there are for specifically you feel like this is for me is, I think, better, because the games that are for everyone are for no one actually, or like they're never like 100% focused on certain idea.
And I go ahead.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I just want to say that I think that this starts with like, what is the type of a game you want to play? Like,
For sure.
forget like Johnny, like he might buy it, he might not.
Screw you, Johnny. I think,
Yeah.
it's more of like an interesting question of what becomes mainstream, right? When I think about what you just said, I think I heard the Helldivers 2 devs say something similar. And when you look at a game like Helldivers 2, it's massively popular, right? But it's interesting because there's a lot of niche things within it, or at least niche inspirations that they took from other games, like Arma. Even I think they were big Arma players and other shooters. That I think there's an interesting space in game development where games will come out and they like clearly innovated and did things that were risky that most leaders and execs would say, no, that's too niche. It won't have broader appeal. And then it did. At its core, I mean, it's a 4-player co-op shooter, and like that is broadly appealing. But I don't know, things like staged reloading or friendly fire always being on, that doesn't feel very mainstream, right?
No.
That doesn't feel that feels more niche to me. So it's interesting how those things kind of turn the corner and then become more acceptable to mainstream gamers. That's the what this conversation kind of reminds me of, is where does that space lie?
There's a really fine line to walk with. My recent video was touched on this with the idea of like genre conditioning and genre conventions, where the player has expectations of the mechanical interactions of a game. And when you remove those, say like jumping being on A or the A button or space and stuff like that, there are certain conditions that the player expects there to be in certain genres. And with your experimentations and innovations, it's usually better to leave them for mechanical interactions that come later in the game, so they can get into a flow state with their basic movement and stuff like that. And then leave room for them in their brain mentally to have these unique mechanical interactions later on. So one, they're easier to digest and learn, because I'm sure that game you said, Mikey, about the reloading and pulling the mags off of everywhere, even for someone who's into their milsims and stuff like that, that was probably difficult to pick up. But that's the whole point of the game, right? It's meant to be difficult to pick up. But if you did that on a wider appeal, like say if Call of Duty's next game implemented a bunch of those systems, there might be a lot of backlash, but that's because of like how you frame it within the specific game.
Back to KCD2. If I'm following everyone correctly, a niche feature, I don't know, like throwing stones, for instance. Do we want Johnny to
throwing stones like during stealth segments, or what do you mean by throwing stones?
Yeah, I think that was pretty actually that's typical thing for like stealth gameplay, right? Like you have a distraction mechanism. What definitely separates our fan base is the saving system.
Yeah,
that's
100%.
That's definitely one.
That's super. People are like, either they're loving it or they're like absolutely viciously hate it.
Yeah. Could you describe it for us for the audience?
More than once.
So basically, in Kingdom Come Deliverance 1 and 2, the game saves sort of automatically when you accept the quest or you complete the quest. You can save and quit, which means like if you quit the game, it will save the game. But if you want a quick save, you need to have a potion called Savior Schnapps with you, and you have to drink it. Which obviously, if you are not very good at the game and you don't know how to get it or how to brew it or where to collect the herbs, or you don't want to do the effort, it detracts people. But we all firmly stand behind this to make the suspense of the game more suspenseful, because pressing F5 before an encounter is sort of
cheap,
takes away from it.
Yep.
And so if you go to the wilderness, or you have to, pack your savior schnapps so you can save, also we kind of add some combat bonuses on that. So if you drink it, it gives you a boost, which people usually drink it before fights, so it's okay. But that divides people a lot. The number one mod already is quick saving, undoubtedly.
So
Yeah.
the people against it are just upset that they have to go through the motions to do that.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing you mentioned about genres. There's just like that you're super accustomed to something. Funny thing is that, especially with Kingdom Come Deliverance 1, that was a game that a lot of non-gamers played because they loved history or fencing or whatever, and these people never had any problem with that because for them that was the rules of the game.
Yeah, they had no reference before that, right?
Yeah.
Rather than following the rules of the genre. And so I think this is really interesting. What you're saying is like changing the genre, trying to pull people out. And I think it kind of ties with the games for specific types of people rather than games for everyone. Because I think games for everyone kind of
dilute
do
stuff,
this
right?
sort of, like average the pattern into like, you can play all of these games interchangeably and the experience is sort of the same. It's honed to perfection. It's like crafted amazingly well, but it's all it feels very, very sane.
Yeah.
In a way.
It's really difficult to do. It's extremely difficult to do. Like the video I made was on Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, which is a Metroidvania, which starts as feeling very similar to all of its predecessors, but then evolves from that. And that was one of the things I thought was very unique about it, that it used genre conditioning to give you a baseline to get in, and then was like, okay, you're cool, you're comfortable, here's a bunch of weird shit. Like, here's a bunch of really interesting things, and they become very second nature because your brain isn't working on trying to understand the baseline mechanics. But I believe that game is an outlier in that respect. A lot of games tend to just become very samey. And I think as game devs, we should be trying to push the mold and trying to change things and improve genres, right? There's no one genre that I believe has figured it out and is like, yeah, this is the way it should be. Like, we should always be trying to evolve.
You say that when in our industry, there's so many shooters popping up that feel virtually the same with different character models, and they're kind of falling by the wayside very quickly. And I think it kind of lends itself to that argument where you shouldn't make a game for every shooter player. Just focus on, as devs, if you dilute your ideas and features and themes and try to just kind of make everyone happy, you're right. I think it definitely is not. It's not the way to go.
Yeah.
I'm really not. I think game devs would actually want to do different games.
Yeah.
I think this comes down to the financial thing because.
Agreed.
Improving game mechanics, that's like if you want to choose what do you want to spend your money on, you want to spend the money on the most reliable factor, which for a better part of this millennia or century was graphic fidelity. If you can run, if your game can run in better resolution, more textures, whatever, it will always improve the game. But, kind of tuning with the game mechanics, that can also make the game worse quite easily. So I think everyone's sort of like, because it's costly business, everyone's very, very risk aversive.
Yeah.
And they go into better voiceover, better sound, better graphics, more live services, or maybe they still believe that it's better. But, you go into ways how you can improve the game and reliably get more, just better product out of it. And sadly, game mechanics are not part of that family.
No.
They're way
right.
more complicated.
Yep.
You're right. Yeah.
Doc.
It's Ludo.
Hello.
Puppy.
Get ready for
Say
Ludo,
hello.
Andre. So
Chat's gonna
docile.
blow up.
Super cute.
Jeez, it was just a big teddy bear, really.
For those of you who are listening, we have a full view of Ludo. Oh, look at the arms outstretched.
Chased
Oh, watch this.
Oh,
Ready,
my
Ludo? Give me
goodness.
It's-
Oh, give me your paw, Ludo.
You guys remember in like 2011 when Minecraft came out and how shocked everyone was because it did not fit that graphic fidelity mold at all, right?
No.
I think it was even built on JavaScript. You're like, what the hell?
Yeah, and
You
it's
know?
because the gameplay was wild and different and expansive and
Yeah.
playable, and also it was very stylized. Like I think that was about the time where we realized, like, okay, we don't need to just can it run Crisis at every video game that we
60 frames.
we don't
a
need to
second
compare
or
everything
whatever.
to graphical fidelity. We can also just have games that are very stylized. But we don't even need innovative gameplay mechanics, kind of like we were talking about a minute ago, to have like fun games. You look at the boomer shooter genre, a lot of those games are very similar mechanically because they're all inspired by Quake and Doom and shit, and they just have really different aesthetics, and that's fine, and people still enjoy that. So there's merit to doing that. But I agree with you, Andre. Like it's a bit of a shame. The financial component makes us less risk willing, and it means that as designers or even as artists and creatives in general, you can take fewer risks. I think design feels it the most, though, because designers want to do weird stuff. They want to do different stuff, but they can only do so much.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I mean, it sounds like you're shielded from the corporate stuff, Andre, right? Like you're just doing your thing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, a lot of people were worried when we were bought by Embracer, but I honestly have to say their model of just do a game and then just tell
Hands
us if it's like close to finishing so we can like fire up all the marketing stuff. That was really, really cool. I mean, like I wasn't apart from having to fill in some employee questionnaire once a year, I don't really know that I work for Embracer
That's wonderful.
in a way.
Which is a good
So
thing.
that was cool, and obviously all people were worried, and we were kind of worried because we didn't know, like, and you hear the stories from other companies which are like terrifying, right? Like absolute horror shows of takeovers where everything is just dismantled and kicked to the curb. So that was great. That was great.
Outside of game dev, I'm quite familiar with that. I will not elaborate more.
Man, it's so inspiring to hear that, like, it really feels like you guys have taken the punk kind of indie formula for game dev and just like scaled it up to such a big degree that it's really inspiring to see that a deserved success can push you guys to that level. Because a lot of the times you see games that succeed where the success means their scale gets pushed up, they get the corporate then get pulled in, and then everything gets squashed and their sequel is lesser because of it, and you can feel it. But it's really cool to see that you guys have circumvented that. Like, how do you think it is the kind of hands-off nature of Embracer that has allowed for that, or have your leaders within your company structure kind of fought for that kind of freedom?
No, I think it was. I haven't noticed any sort of meddling into like the way we do
that's
things.
great. That's amazing.
So if there was any fight, I never heard about it, and I honestly don't think there was.
Yeah, I doubt there was. Yeah,
they're I think they're a relatively streamlined company. They don't have like in other takeovers, you see like a bunch of lawyers go in and they start to do personal reviews and whatnot, and it's all very and you start like reworking the organizational scheme to fit the maternal company or whatnot. And none of this happened here. Like, really,
That's
apart from few visits where they come to see, like, hey,
Yeah.
how's it going, guys? It wasn't very much, which is great that that this happened.
Yeah,
'Cause,
for sure.
as I said, everyone was kind of afraid it could be the other way.
Yeah, 100%. And it's really nice to see that it didn't. Like, what do you see for War Studios like in the future? Do you see more like scaling up a little bit more? Or do you see like the team is at a good kind of space and like you can just move forward with this kind of team scale? Like, what do you guys want to do?
I feel like he's sort of out of the purview of the business side of
That's
things.
true. That's true.
Yeah.
But hey, what's the opinion of a grunt, someone on the ground?
I can't comment about what we are doing in the future, obviously.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
But I have a confidence in the team in a way that I think we are a bunch of people who are extremely passionate about games, very detail oriented. So I think we will, like, these are like, the team composition is great for games in the future.
Yeah.
Definitely. So I think we'll carry this, and we just want everyone to kind of stay together, because it's a great team, and so but I can't really, scaling up, scaling down.
Yeah,
It's a
of
really
course, you
hard
can't talk about
question,
like future plans and stuff like that. I completely understand
yeah.
that. 100%. Yeah, I mean, it's really inspiring to see the success you guys are seeing and like hearing about, the structure behind the scenes. It just gives me, inspiration for like where, not obviously not on that scale, but where I would one day like to be within a company. Like that's such a good thing to aspire for, because yeah, it's just so good. I love it to bits. It's awesome. All right, well, I feel like that might be a very beautiful kind of ending to the stream, end on this beautiful positive note. Unless any of you guys have anything else you want to raise or bring up, or if chat has any burning questions before we leave, if I've missed them.
Let's take a minute. So if anybody has any questions, want to make donations, feel free to throw them in for Ondřej here, senior game
100%.
designer on Kingdom Come 1 and 2. I have a question for you, Ondřej. I'm curious about like how it feels for you personally and for the team now that you finally shipped. It sounds like a wild project, and it's the studio has a wild start back to like the Kickstarter, if I remember right, in 2015. I don't remember. Was it around then? It might have been earlier,
2014.
right? 14. Okay. Yeah.
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 I mean, the feelings are obviously a mixed kind of thing. Like, you feel relieved that it's not over, but it's like out in the world. It's released. It's also like you all probably know this from your personal projects, or like you work on something for so many years, and then it gets attention for like 2 weeks, and then it's sort of like, I mean, like, you still have a great game, but the attention goes away to the next hot kid on the block. So that's kind of weird. So it was quite tense before the release, because we knew that the game is definitely in a better technical state than the first one, but we still didn't know if so many Joes and Johns will buy into the formula, basically. So even though the first game was a success, you never know whether, with a game like this, whether it's going to be this successful. So I guess right now it's sort of, we're all like getting our heads together and planning for the future. And obviously we still have to do DLCs and all the roadmap stuff, which are some of the things that we had to we weren't able to do. So it's great that
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's coming out later.
So, and I think that the most crucial ones are actually as a free update. So that's great. And so I think it's very strange. I always say that the weirdest part about game development is like how if you're a person who likes to finish things, it's torturing because you never basically you don't finish it ever.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then one day someone says, well, but we're just taking this and we're running with it.
Yeah.
And you have so little milestones in between. Like the game looks 90% of the time the game looks unplayable, right?
Mhm.
It doesn't feel like we can release this like now. So it's a struggle in terms like you have 6 years of questions like will people like it?
Yeah.
Will it sell enough copies to at least so we can make another game and redeem ourselves, or maybe it's gonna be a big hit, So it's that's I think this is hard when you're working on any creative medium that takes years to complete.
Yeah, they say art is never finished; it's always abandoned. Like there has to be a point where you have to be like, I can't add any more to this. We have to put it out because you would just work on it forever, trying to get it to the point you want.
Well, that's why we have the producers for this.
Exactly.
Painful.
Circle back. Shout out to
thank you so much, Tina.
Shout out
thank
to
you so
the
much, Tina.
KCD2 producers.
Big shout out, 100%. We have a question from one of the audience members, which is for Ondřej. What is a game that you like to play to relax after a full day of dev? What's a game that you like to relax to?
Well, right now, and I'm ashamed kind of to even say it, but Balatro on mobile phone is like
it's great.
It's
Ondřej, where's the shame in that? Where's the shame in playing Balatro?
I mean, well, the shame is that I'm locked in bathroom playing it, on mobile.
That's the bet. You're a dad. The bathroom's the best place to get a moment's respite and to play a little bit of the addictive card game.
You might be asking, how old are your kids?
5 and 2.
Ah, yes. Okay. Ooh. So the bathroom break is definitely the best
Yeah,
place to go. Yeah.
Play some
or what I like to play is if I can get to my PC and I have enough time, I do play a lot of strategy games. So Civ 6 or Hearts of Iron 4. Mainly.
Have you had a chance to jump into Civ 7?
Yeah, what do you think of Civ 7?
I was so excited. I was like, we're going to release the game. And I'm going to buy Civ 7. And I think that what they did with what people don't like, the switching of the sort of nations in between the eras, I think that's a great thing to add because you have to evolve the game somehow. Yeah. It's like Civ, like you can't just put better graphics on Civilization and sell it as a new thing. But the UI is, I think that having a console UI in a PC game is just that it's horrendous.
Yeah,
and I haven't played it. I haven't played it. I saw videos, and you can definitely see this was made for console. And with a game that has so many details, having these super large icons take over half the screen, it's like it definitely feels like the UI wasn't finished. Even the icons are really like kind of placeholderish. So this was like a big bummer. I will play it once a mod for UI is out, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah.
Just to speculate, the dev team probably focused on working on the game on console rather than running it on PC, is my guess. Especially for UI.
That's kind of strange when you're working on Civilization, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, Civ is primarily a PC game.
Yes. It's just speculation.
I mean,
no, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I heard that there was a big push towards like there will be the first Civilization to really be on the consoles, which I admire that, consoles can be something else than shooters and stuff. But to be honest, most people still play strategy games on PC, and
It's a tough jump, man. It's a very
it's massively tough.
Yeah.
It's great feedback. I mean, maybe the team, who knows? Maybe the team will update the UI specifically for PC audiences.
Well, they would actually if there were two sets of UIs, that would make the most sense, right? So some other games have that, and they're not that dependent on UI. So Civ 7 so far kind of let down, but and then I started new run in Cyberpunk because I want to do the DLC I never did. So so that's the games I'm playing.
Maybe get inspiration for your future AI games.
Play Shadows of Doubt, man. Play Shadows of Doubt.
Shadows of Doubt.
Right up your street.
I think you've got to check out. If I may make a recommendation, Ondřej, there's a strategy game.
Definitely.
Have you heard of Shadow Empire?
No.
Shadow Empire is an extremely crunchy, high detail, sort of like I would call like a futuristic sci-fi military 4X. Eric, thank you, Eric, has already pulled up some stuff. You generate a planet that you're formed on. The narrative is it's far, far, far in the future. The empire has fallen. You are just some sort of group in a post-empire. I wouldn't say like apocalyptic world, somewhere out in the expanse of space. It's extremely detailed. You have everything from like managing your cabinet, hiring and firing people. They have all these different stats, doing military troop movements on a hex grid.
Wow.
For somebody who is disappointed by the consoleization, I guess we could say, it feels like a while since I've said that, of Civ, as you're describing, this is like way in the other direction. I think it's made by one, I want to say like Dutch dev. I'm not totally sure. His name looks Dutch. But super cool. It's on Steam. I'm really surprised more strategy gamers don't know about this one, but would highly recommend it. I'll shoot you a link after this if you're interested.
Cool. Thanks. Definitely.
Awesome. Tina, what have you been playing recently, and Mikey?
Me, I have a 1 and 3-year-old, so mobile games are like my pride and joy right now. And I've never played mobile games before this, so it's actually crazy. I've been diving into whatever Netflix has available because I have a Netflix subscription.
That's not many people know about this, but it's actually cool that you have so many games in the subscription.
Yeah. Like Hades is available through Netflix on your mobile phone for free. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. I started that.
Into the Breach is on Netflix, by the way, which is excellent on mobile.
Really? That's a really good that's a good example, of a game that fits its format.
That's a game you don't have to play on PC, basically.
Right.
Or on a big screen.
I'm going to check that one out.
Yeah, if you like turn-based, Into the Breach is pretty good.
Shamefully, I need to share that I play Netflix Stories, which is just dialogue selecting, and you just, have like a general story. It's very cheesy, but like I can just shut it off whenever a kid cries, and then I'm not, I'm not punished for it. So
without punishment.
But the stories are very limited. They're all kind of very similar right now, which is like, romance, this person. Now you're in a relationship, and I'm like, okay, yay.
Yeah, visual novel games are very similar to
thirsty, dude. Well, they're very thirsty.
Yeah.
It seems.
If you like stories, there's I think Storyteller is the name of the game. I think it's on Netflix, where you like put the you put like a comic book together, and you have to like make the ending. It's this guy.
That.
I don't know what its name. Maybe it's Storyteller. I'm not sure.
Is it a love story?
I think that's it. Yeah.
Storyteller.
I've
seen it.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. No.
It's cool.
Mobile games, the saving grace of all young
of parents.
Young parents ever. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. But this one's cool, and it's also on the Netflix subscriptions, I think.
Yeah. No. It's really cool. I think more gamers will wisen up to this stuff in the next year or two, but it is very cool that
maybe it's a marketing issue, because the fact that they've got Hades on there is wild, and
and no one knows about
the fact that we don't work in games media, and I don't fucking know about that.
It's crazy.
You'd think we'd know.
And then I downloaded the new Squid Game mobile game that they have that came out with the show, and I just finished watching the show, so I'll jump into the game. But that's a multiplayer game. I think it's good, but no one's talking about it. Like Netflix isn't really promoting it, so yeah.
Might be a marketing issue. What are you playing, Mikey?
On my end, it might sound like I'm being flattering, but I binged the shit out of Kingdom Come 1 in anticipation for this. I think I put 20 to 30 hours into it the past 10 days, which is pretty good for me. I guess to some gamers that's like whatever, but
it's a part-time
that was
job.
pretty big for me. I started. Here's the thing. Here's my relationship with Kingdom Come. I started playing it in 2018 when it came out, and I got too absorbed in the lootiness of it. I was trying to pick everything up, I remember. And I remember getting annoyed with my own inventory management and thinking like, I'm going to pick this up another time. I'm not into the open world stuff right now. So I didn't get too far. But then when I came back in anticipation of doing it, I was a little more disciplined of a gamer. And I thought, you know what? Like, let me actually try to get through the content, not obsess over the gear and the min-maxing and the inventory stuff. And I kind of flew after that. I'm really enjoying it. I did like a shitload of side quest stuff, and I jumped into the main quest, which is always funny because you like show up and talk to Lord Radzig, and he's talking to you like you're just a boy, and you've got like fully kitted out armor, the grand bassinet and shit. And I'm loving that about the game. It's cool. And I got into a little bit of Kingdom Come 2, so that's been great. Fly Night is another one I played. You guys see Fly Night?
Fly Night. No,
Fly Night it's like fly like a bug, night like a fancy knight with a sword. PS1 era, very Kingsfield inspired, Dark Souls inspired design, first person melee combat. It just came out. It's a solo dev. I want to say he's in Western Europe. I can't remember. He might be in South America. I messaged him a couple times about dev heads. He didn't respond to me. So maybe I'll ping him now and show this timestamp to show him I'm serious. But I really wanted to have him on. It's a super cool game. Just another testament to why like indie game development is all the more feasible now. And talking about risk taking like we were earlier, right? Like they're probably the best position to do risky stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes they're a little too beholden to their source material. Other times they're pretty innovative. I think this is a good example of a good balance. So yeah, I've been playing Fly Night a bit. What else? Dipped back into some 7 Days. Solasta, I'm still playing, which is like a more gameplay focused CRPG, I guess. Like if you take Baldur's Gate 3, but less of a production budget and more of an emphasis on the combat. I'm doing a little bit of multiplayer Solasta and Stalker 2, of course, because it's terrific and badass. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah. I'll do mine quickly and then we will wrap this up. So I'm playing a bunch of games because me and my friends have got into this like kind of widespread mod called Archipelago, if you guys have heard of this. Extremely interesting.
What?
A lot of games. So effectively what it does is it links all of your games together. So for instance, I'm currently playing Terraria and A Hat in Time. I've got like 2 games. And my other friends have like Dark Souls and Kingdom Hearts 2 and stuff. And what it does is it places their items from their game in my game and my items from my game in theirs. So to progress, you both need to play and get each other items and they send them to each other. So like in Terraria, the really powerful weapons I need and like things to progress, my friends have to play Dark Souls and kill a knight and loot him, and it will send an item to me, and vice versa.
What?
And
how is it technically like possible?
Yeah.
I mean,
it's
like
really
everything's
interesting.
modded.
Yeah, it's all through an Archipelago mod you install into the game, and it's crazy. The one we did before this was I played Hollow Knight, and another one was playing Pokemon Emerald. And so like I would kill a boss and it would send him a Master Ball. And
I feel like we should do
awesome.
We need to do a whole podcast about this.
That's so cool. Yeah.
So fun. It's unbelievably. Sometimes you get into the issue of like I'm currently playing The Hat in Time and it's like a 3D platformer and you need a specific amount of effectively their version of stars from Mario 64 to progress, right? To open new worlds. And I've hit a wall where like I can't progress in that game anymore until my friends find me more stars. Like they need to find me more things. So we're constantly communicating on like I need this and I need that, and they've all got hint systems in them now. So like if you're like, oh, I need this specific item to continue, you can ask the mod and it will say, oh, this item you need is in this person's game, roughly in this area. So they have a thread to pull and an area to focus on.
What in
It's
the world?
Wild, dude.
It's
Go
extremely
ahead,
like this design wise. It's extremely like in every game the loot and the distribution works differently. I mean, like,
Yeah.
is it like randomly generated or is it like
it's
always
not. It's like
in that
curated by
game?
specific modders. So
Okay.
like for Terraria, for
Ah.
instance,
Yeah.
when I
Okay.
download
Okay,
the
so-
mod,
There must be
Well,
like
you can
a
alter it.
list of games that you can select from.
yes, there's a list of compatible
Okay.
games, and you
So
pick
it's
them.
I was like,
authored.
it works on every game.
It's
Goddamn.
authored, but you can alter it.
That's
So
so
for
cool.
Terraria,
That's
for
so wild.
example,
Mhm.
Terraria is all about loads of different weapons, loads of different ways to progress. Like Terraria is crazy. So
Is GTA
when you download
on
the
this
mod,
list? I'm sorry. I could go
potentially,
on.
I'll have to check afterwards. But
Okay.
like for Terraria, for
I'm gonna look it up.
instance,
Oh, there's
when you
Doom
download
too.
the
I
mod,
saw Doom. That's wild.
when you download the mod, it says, okay, so here's all of the distributions. This is what we recommend. But if you want every single item possible in Terraria, which is thousands,
Mhm.
to be in other people's games, go for it. If you want like these specific conditions, you want all of this, like you can completely alter what it does before you download it, before you set up the server. It is probably, I might actually make a video on this, or we can do a dev heads on it, because
We
I think
should
it might be
do
the
a-
most
we should
do a
ambitious.
stream.
Yeah.
That'd be fun.
So it runs on a server. Like you have like with your friends, you have a server set up
Yeah.
which manages the communication between the games.
Yeah.
I need to talk to our modding guys. We need to get on this. Like we need to be in Archipelago.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Hell yeah,
it's
dude.
insane. It's insane. And people really like the people I know who play it. Every time we finish a run and like because effectively you're playing together and you have a collective completion. So you're aiming to complete all of your games. That's
Okay.
how you win effectively. So we're constantly communicating. Like I've never had a gaming experience where I'm outside of playing them, I'm communicating. Like I was playing the other day and my friend really needed a specific spell in Kingdom Hearts 2 to like progress. He needed it to talk to Merlin, and we knew it was in my game somewhere. And like I went and like found it. I was like hunting for it, and I was like, I'm gonna find
so
this
cool.
thing because he can't
Because
progress.
it's your
And
friend.
as soon as I
Your
got
friend
it,
needs your help.
I was like, dude, and I found it, and I was like, I fucking got it! I got it! I was like spamming the chat, like, dude, I found the thing, and like, it's so addictive and so cool. Yeah, we'll do a dev heads or a
Asymmetric
design dev on this
multiplayer.
because it's cool.
We should do this.
It's
like,
awesome.
I'll play Overcooked 2 while you guys play Sudoku while someone else plays VVVVVV.
Yeah,
That's,
it's
that
so
seems
cool.
insane.
Yeah,
Okay,
no worries.
cool.
So like I know people are on a time crunch, so hey,
I
we'll do
gotta
a
go.
future thing on this. But I'll wrap things up now because this has gone on longer than I thought it would, and I'm sure Ondrej's arm is aching
Thank
currently.
you, Andre. This has
That's
been
okay,
a
it's
lot of
okay.
fun.
Drooped right there.
Thank you so much for joining us, man. We've massively appreciated this chat. It's been super insightful and so inspiring.
If I was
to
a designer on your team, I would work on mudslinging and try to get that in.
mudslinging.
Mudslinging.
Quick feature request in the slinging mud.
Okay.
Get your artists on the mud.
Wonderful.
It's got to look perfect, perfectly awful.
Sorry.
Perfect.
It was great. It was great being here, guys. It's great to talk to other devs. It's always like a very different experience than talking to journalists.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was really really cool. Thank you.
Thanks.
Hell yeah, dude.
Thanks for
Thank
being
you,
on.
man.
We
Thank
appreciate
you.
you.
And deep.
Go
deep
home,
proud,
get
man.
warm, feel better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And rest up. Hopefully you feel better
Yeah.
soon. So yeah, so from all of us, from Mikey, Tina, Eric in the background, massively appreciate you, producer in the
Eric.
back, Ondřej and I, and Ludo, who's asleep over there. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. We massively appreciate your support. Remember, shows like this and everything on Second Wind are supported by your wonderful support over through YouTube chats and also Patreon. So big shout out to everyone who supports us over there. And thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.